I don't care where you're hunting, every state has its own challenges, and obviously the wind was going to be one of our big challenges in Nebraska. Now, one of the cool things is the fact that I had a tag for both antelope and whitetail. Now, we were hunting with Craig with Get Her Done Outfitters, and honestly, I don't think you could find a nicer person on earth to hunt with. He runs a great operation, has incredible land, and a ton of animals. So we decided we're going to kind of split up our days. We're going to do a little bit of whitetail hunting and also some antelope. But the forecast was looking for windy conditions and also pretty cold mornings, which is not real conducive to antelope hunting, especially if you want to sit over a water hole. But we were confident that we could make it work, and if you put in the time, well, eventually with this many animals around, hopefully something would come through. Now, we've been fighting some really tough winds out here in Nebraska, but today what I've decided to do is I need to shoot in this and know exactly where I'm hitting. Now, right now we're looking at probably 40-mile-an-hour winds with 50, maybe even 60-mile-an-hour gusts. That's not possible to hunt in, but this evening it's supposed to lay down a little bit. So what I'm gonna do now is shoot at 20, 30, 40, just to see where my arrows are. Right now the wind's straight in my back, but I'm gonna try to change it up a little bit and just see how my bow is shooting in this type of wind. Wind is not good for hunting. This is definitely some tough shooting. My bow is literally, my pin will be on the target, off the target. There's no way I would ever want to shoot at an animal more than 30 yards in this wind. I mean, right now they're still inside the vital zone, but no way any further than that. So I think what we're going to do is pack up, head out to the blind, and hopefully these deer start moving with this wind, lays down, we might be in luck. Craig and I decided to make a new plan for hunting these extremely windy conditions. He knew of an area that had a little bit more protection from the wind for both us and the deer off a big alfalfa field. We were confident that this, well, it was probably going to be our best chance. Well, it's still pretty windy out, but we got our ground blind up, and what we're going to do is just sit tight. The wind should go down a little bit, but we've got a couple trails. We've got one trail coming in right here and one the other side. Now, we're sitting on a creek line, and the good thing about this is these deer probably aren't going to want to walk out in the wide open when it's this windy. They're going to try to go the protected route. If they take this down, we'll be right here where they come out onto the fields and should have some great luck. Things are totally different with the wind, so we're changing up our hunting style a little bit, and I hope it pays off. A couple hours in, the wind finally laid down and the deer began to move. The field was literally just starting to fill up with deer, and there was one really cool buck that was heading our way. Now, this buck looked like he was just an incredible buck until he put his head down. Then he didn't look quite as big, but he had a really cool rack. It looked like he had a double beam on his left side and just nice. But the problem we were facing, all the deer were staying about 70 yards away from the blind. Now, I wasn't sure if this was because we just had put a blind up or if that's just the part of the field they wanted to be on. But as we sat in that blind and the evening went, more and more deer were feeding out in front of us. And with a gun, well, you would be done. You could take your pick on any one of these. But with a bow, I needed them to get in a little bit closer. Plus, I wasn't quite sure if this buck was really a shooter or not. He looked amazing when he brought his head up, but he was just not that old of a deer. You could definitely tell, but he's one of those bucks. You let him walk, he'd be huge. You shoot him now, he's a cool looking deer. Either way, that wasn't an option I was gonna have because this guy just wouldn't come in close enough. And as evening went through, well, the wind stayed down and we definitely got an eyeful, but unfortunately, we never got a shot.
This segment was brought to you by U.S. Sportsman's Alliance, our heritage, our fight, protecting hunting from coast to coast.
I'm out hunting in Nebraska right now. It's an early season whitetail hunt and these bucks are coming to the alfalfa. The problem this evening, well, we have got huge wind gusts. I'm in a pretty big tree right now, and my tree is drifting back and forth. I'm not positive I would even be able to make a 20-yard shot right now with these kind of gusts. The thing is, we're gonna sit tight, and I'm hoping this wind dies down this afternoon, because if it doesn't, unfortunately, we might be watching a big buck at 20 yards, and there is no way to take a shot. This kind of wind, my arrow will drift right off that deer. My plan was to stick it out in the tree, but it got so windy that I knew there was no way I could take a shot, and we weren't seeing a lot of deer in close. So I decided it's time to get down, and we actually moved to the blind we had sat the night before. It was only a couple 100 yards away, so once we got in, we still had plenty of time left. And of course, as evening went down, the wind finally settled down and the deer started moving again. Deer were just coming out of everywhere, and the nice thing is, well, we were seeing bucks that we hadn't seen before. In fact, a big, framey 8 jumped the fence, and as soon as I saw him, my mouth dropped, because this would be a perfect buck. He was one of the older deer we had seen, but unfortunately, again, he stayed right outside of 70 yards and just never came in for a shot. But there were plenty other deer coming, so our spirits were still high. The good thing is, some of the smaller bucks were right up close to the blind, and they were acting as perfect decoys. So I thought we might be in luck. Now as I glanced up, I saw that same buck from last night coming in. This time he came in close enough that I was able to get a good look at him with my binoculars, and I determined he was a really young deer. Again, a really cool buck, but a buck that really should live on. So I decided to focus my attention back on the 2 mature bucks that I saw in the herd. One big 8 and a nice 10. Now both these bucks were by each other, and they finally started moving their way toward my blind. First, the bigger 8 came through. Now he was just outside of shooting range again, this time about 75, 80 yards. Not far behind him, the bigger 10 was right there and took that exact same path. And that's the problem. Some of these deer, if one chooses to go a little bit wider, a lot of times the other one follows, and that's exactly what happened. But unfortunately, that's the way my luck was going. These bucks were staying right out of range, and there was nothing I could do about it.
Tip of the Week is brought to you by Field & Stream. Trusted brands, timeless traditions.
After over 3 years in the making, Winchester released the new 17-Win Super Mag, which is a high-velocity 17 caliber rimfire cartridge that shoots 3,000 feet per second, making it the fastest rimfire ever made. This is perfect for coyote and varmint hunters who are looking for an extremely accurate, low recoil, flat shooting round that has less wind drift than any other rimfire. Plus, it's extremely affordable. This caliber blows away traditional rimfire ballistics, including the 17 HMR and the 22 Win Mag. It shoots 2 times flatter and drifts only half as far in the wind. Plus, it delivers more than 150% more energy. For example, when shooting the 17 Win Super Mag with a 10-mile-per-hour crosswind, you can see it barely moves when zeroed in at 100 yards. At 150 yards, it hardly drifts, and the bullet drop, well, it's minimal. And the best part, well, as a true 200-yard cartridge, it is outperforming all other rimfires with minimal pelt damage, which is a huge bonus. This cartridge retains its velocity and performs really more like a centerfire round than a rimfire, but at a more affordable price point of rimfire ammunition. So basically, you're getting the best of both worlds with the 17 Win Super Mag.
This segment was brought to you by Boss Buck. For the most user-friendly and dependable feeder on the market, choose Boss Buck feeders. Now you're getting serious. Winchester Deadly Passion is presented by Cuddy Back Digital, Hard-Hitting Easton Arrows, Hunter's Safety System, Winchester Repeating Arms, Swarovski Optic, Send killer gold with Hunt Dry technology. Apply it, dry it, and go hunt. Rage Broadheads, leading the evolution in lethal technology. U.S. Sportsman's Alliance, protecting hunting from coast to coast. And Golden Triangle Whitetail, your hunt of a lifetime awaits.
The whitetail hunting, well, it was absolutely exciting. But we had decided that we were gonna go for antelope in the mornings. So the next morning, well, we were after it for antelope, and there were a ton of antelope out in the field. You could see so many, and we were sitting at the one watering hole. Well, as we were sitting in there were bucks coming in, does coming in, and it was really pretty cool to watch. I don't care what you're hunting, when you can have a lot of animals in close, it makes it exciting. And for the fact, I'd never shot an antelope before, so I wasn't gonna be real choosy on this, but I wanted to get a nice buck at that. One of the things I like about antelope is the fact they're not as afraid of blinds. And Craig had this blind out plenty of times, so they were all used to it and they were coming in calm as can be. Now, these weren't all giant bucks, but it's pretty exciting to have antelope in close, and when you've never shot one before, well, they all look good. So I was trying to wait and try to get a mature buck. One buck after another came in, and then I spotted a really nice, tall, tight rack buck, just really cool looking, and I decided I'm gonna make a shot. I just missed a beautiful antelope. Really nice buck came in, was kind of cautious, not sure if he wanted a drink. Finally got the shot I was looking for, and I completely blew it. Not real excited about that, but you know what? For some reason, antelope, they can be tough to hit. I have no idea why. Nice and close, should have been a chip shot, but unfortunately, wasn't for me today. Instead of the weather improving in Nebraska, it actually got worse. And now, not only was the wind blowing out of control, but it was downright freezing. Everything was spooked by the wind, and shots were becoming nearly impossible. Not only is this wind making it really difficult for me to hunt, but a lot of these animals, well, they're not interested in moving around in it. They can't hear, they can't smell, they can barely see with all the dust blowing. And that includes me too, but I'm just hoping the wind's gonna lay down, but the forecast does not look like that. As long as this ground blind doesn't come rolling over on me, I should be okay. After a few hours, we decided to call the hunt as the wind was only getting worse. So Craig and I took down the blind and did our best not to blow away. Now, I had a tag for Montana antelope as well, and even though I had a great opportunity in Nebraska, well, I didn't get it done, and Montana was only a couple hours away, so I decided to pack up and head to Montana in hopes of getting my first antelope.
Winchester Deadly Passion is presented by Winchester, the American legend. Matthews, catch us if you can. Field and Stream, where traditions begin. ScoutLookWeather.com. Download the free Deer Log app for your smartphone. Moose Utility Division. Demand the brand. Bog Pod. Versatility defined. M&P by Smith & Wesson. And Boss Buck, for the most user-friendly and dependable feeder on the market. Now you're getting serious. Closed captioning is brought to you by the 4-in-1 Woodsman from Zippo Outdoor.
There are a few spots that I really love going back to because you get to know the people. You get to become friends with them. And CJ is one of those people at Powder River Outfitters. I usually try to get out there for an antelope hunt, a whitetail hunt, and I have had just a blast over the years. I've taken some absolutely incredible bucks rattling, some early season, but I've never been lucky enough to take an antelope. And this year, well, we arrived at the perfect time. It looked like we were hitting it during the peak of the rut, so my goal was to use that to our advantage. We're out here at first light, and today for antelope hunting, how we're gonna do it is I'm actually gonna put decoys out and use a blind. Now, one of the toughest part of putting decoys out when you're bow hunting, well, it's the fact that you can't hardly get a good shot. So what I'm gonna do is put these decoys out, I'm gonna have a bedded doe, and then I'm gonna put a buck standing behind her. And with this, I'm hoping we've got antelope all over the country, but they're far enough away yet, they shouldn't be able to see our decoys out. I'm gonna get in the blind so I'll have the cover to be able to draw, shoot, and I'm hoping these bucks come right into our decoys just like they would if you were doing it spot and stock, but I'll be able to use the blind to help me out. Now with this buck decoy, I'm hoping he's small enough that these antelope shouldn't be too scared of him, and I'm gonna put him behind there. Now this is a big feeding field. These antelope are out here all day. I've literally seen them out within the hay bales all times of the day. There's not really any water close by, so this is gonna probably be our best bet. I've always wanted a decoy antelope, but instead of doing it spot and stock, I'm gonna try this out of a blind. If this doesn't work, well, then we might regroup and try to find something else. And finally, well, that buck came in and eyed up my decoy. He was just cool looking, but he was a little bit smaller buck. CJ had said there's some really nice ones. Don't shoot something that's young or too small. So as we sat there, I just sat back and watched the show, and it was really, really cool. To see this buck in close, see that he decoyed in, well, it was pretty exciting, and to know that this old decoy worked, well, it couldn't have been any better. But as they kind of passed through the area, we decided we had enough hunting here. We're gonna try another location where a big buck had been spotted and sit it out there. Midday is usually the best time for these antelope. It gets hot, it starts out cold in the morning, but it definitely warms up, and a lot of these antelope are coming to drink. Well, we just had a badger come right into the water hole. We hadn't even been here probably 5 minutes, and he just appeared right here at the watering hole, got a drink. It was pretty cool. He came here, and he actually ended up going around the blind and kind of just went off. I'm glad he didn't try to come in and get in the blind with me, because then we might have had a whole different situation, but pretty cool to see. Everything looks good. Now we just need the antelope to show up. Well, as we're sitting there, we got a glimpse of a nice buck coming. Now, he wasn't just walking in, he was actually trotting in. Then I looked over, another antelope was coming. we just had a huge buck come in almost at the last minute. I had a nice buck in front of me coming. I would have no problem taking him. We looked over and there was a big buck coming from the right and he was charging it. It's like he pretty much owned the place. Just an awesome deal. Finally got a beautiful antelope down and I'm pretty sure he barely even made it to the crest of the hill. Check this out. My first ever antelope. Just a beautiful buck. All I could see when he came in was this heavy mass. He's got great cutters and just a cool color to his horns. I don't think I've ever seen anything this kind of gray looking. He just looks super old to me. We're out here with Powder River Outfitters. They've got a perfect watering hole with a blind sitting right there, 20-yard shot, and he didn't hardly make it to the top of the hill.
Follow Melissa on Twitter at Melissa Bachman and on Facebook at facebook.com/Winchester Deadly Passion for behind-the-scenes footage, photos, giveaways, and much more.